They locked the doors the moment he walked in. Marcus heard the click before he even reached the front desk, a sharp, deliberate sound that didn't match the calm, polished atmosphere of the hotel lobby. It was subtle, almost hidden under the soft music playing in the background, but not subtle enough to miss. He slowed his steps slightly, not stopping, just noticing. Because moments like that don't happen without a reason. Or at least, without a reason someone believes in. The lobby itself looked exactly like any low-end hotel should. Warm lighting, clean marble floors, quiet conversations, a receptionist standing behind the desk with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. A couple stood off to the side waiting for their room keys, relaxed, unbothered, completely unaware of the shift that had just happened. Marcus approached the desk, his posture straight, his expression calm, the small travel bag resting comfortably on his shoulder. "Hi, I have a reservation," he said, his voice steady. The receptionist nodded, but her fingers didn't move toward the keyboard right away. Instead, her eyes flicked briefly toward the glass doors behind him, then back to him, like she was checking something without saying it. "Name?" she asked. "Marcus Reed." She typed it in, her movements slower than they needed to be, the soft clicking of the keyboard filling the space between them. A few seconds passed, then a few more, the kind of delay that feels longer when nothing is being said. "I'm not seeing that reservation," she said finally. Marcus didn't react immediately. He had expected something like that. "It should be under that name," he replied calmly. "Booked 2 days ago." Another pause. She typed again, this time a little faster, then stopped, her eyes narrowing slightly at the screen. "Can I see your ID?" she asked. Marcus reached into his pocket and handed it over without hesitation. She took it, glanced at it quickly, then looked back at the screen. Meanwhile, one of the guests waiting nearby stepped forward, and another staff member appeared almost instantly to assist them, smiling, welcoming, efficient. Their check-in took less than a minute, keys handed over, directions given, everything smooth, uninterrupted. Same desk, same system, different experience. The receptionist handed the ID back slowly. "I'm still not finding it," she said. Marcus nodded once. "Can you check again?" he asked. Her eyes lifted briefly, meeting his for a second before dropping back to the screen. "I already did," she replied. The tone wasn't rude, but it wasn't open either. Marcus shifted his weight slightly, his gaze steady. "I have the confirmation," he said, pulling out his phone and opening the email. He turned the screen toward her. She glanced at it, then paused. Another second. Then another. The information was right there. Clear, undeniable. But the hesitation stayed. "I'll need to call a manager," she said. Marcus didn't respond right away. He simply nodded again, stepping slightly to the side as she picked up the phone behind the desk. While she spoke quietly, Marcus looked around the lobby. The doors were still locked. He could see people outside approaching, then hesitating, confused for a moment before someone from inside walked over to open it for them. Control, selective, intentional. A few minutes later, a man in a dark suit approached from the back office area, his expression neutral but alert. He looked at Marcus briefly, then at the receptionist. "What seems to be the issue?" he asked. The receptionist explained quietly, her words low but clear enough to catch the key parts. "Reservation not showing. System issue. Confirmation email." The manager nodded slowly, then turned to Marcus. "Sir, can I see the confirmation?" he asked. Marcus handed him the phone. The manager scanned it quickly, his eyes moving across the details, the date, the room type, the booking number. Then he paused. Something shifted, not dramatically, but enough. He handed the phone back. "Give me a moment," he said. He turned and walked back toward the office, leaving the space in that same quiet tension that had been building since Marcus walked in. The doors were still locked. The lobby was still calm, but the difference remained. Marcus stood there, patient, composed, his expression unchanged, but his awareness fully present. After a few minutes, the manager returned, this time with a different tone in his posture. "We found your reservation," he said. Marcus nodded slightly. "Huh. It seems there was an issue with how it was entered into the system," the manager added. Marcus didn't say anything, because that explanation didn't fully match what had just happened. The manager turned to the receptionist. "Go ahead and check him in." She nodded quickly, her fingers moving faster now. The process suddenly efficient, smooth, exactly how it should have been from the start. Within moments, the room key was ready. She handed it over with a small, controlled smile. "Here you go." Marcus took it. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a completed transaction. He looked at the key for a second, then back at them. "Why were the doors locked?" he asked. The question hung in the air. The manager hesitated. "Security protocol," he said. Marcus held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once. Because again, that answer didn't fully explain what had just happened. He turned and walked toward the elevators, the key card resting lightly in his hand, his steps steady, measured. Behind him, the doors unlocked again with a soft click, returning to normal, as if nothing had changed, as if nothing had happened. Inside the elevator, Marcus pressed the button for his floor and leaned back slightly against the wall, the quiet hum of the lift filling the space. It wasn't angry, it wasn't confused, it was clear. Because it wasn't about whether the reservation existed. It did. It wasn't about whether he would get the room. He did. It was about everything that happened before that. The hesitation, the doubt, the extra steps that weren't applied equally. The elevator doors opened, and Marcus stepped out into the hallway, walking toward his room, the soft carpet muffling his footsteps. He reached the door, tapped the keycard, and heard the lock click open. Another click, different meaning this time. He stepped inside, placed his bag down, and looked around the room. Everything was exactly as expected. Clean, organized, prepared, perfect. On the surface, Marcus walked toward the window and looked out over the city, the lights stretching into the distance, calm, consistent, unchanged. The stay would continue, the service would be provided, everything would function normally from here. But the beginning of it, that didn't disappear. Because once you notice how differently a moment starts before it corrects itself, you don't forget that part. You don't ignore it. You carry it with you. And the next time a door locks behind you, you'll hear it clearly, even if no one else does. Marcus didn't unpack right away. He stood there for a while, the room quiet around him, the soft hum of the air conditioning blending into the background like everything was perfectly in place. It should have felt comfortable, maybe even relaxing after a long day of travel. But the stillness carried something else with it now, something he couldn't ignore. He walked over to the bed and placed his phone down, then sat at the edge for a moment, his hands resting loosely together as he looked around the room again. Nothing was wrong. Everything was exactly how it should be. The lighting was warm, the furniture polished, the view from the window stretching out across the city like a picture that hadn't been touched. But the beginning of this stay didn't match that calm, and that contrast stayed with him. Marcus leaned back slowly, letting out a quiet breath, not heavy, not tense, just controlled. He wasn't replaying every detail in his head anymore. He didn't need to. The moment had already settled into something clear. He stood up again and walked toward the window, pulling the curtain slightly to the side. The city outside moved in its usual rhythm, cars flowing through the streets, lights shifting from red to green, people walking without pause. Everything continued exactly the way it always did. From the outside, nothing had happened. From the inside, everything had already been understood. Marcus stepped back from the window and picked up his phone, scrolling through his emails until he found the reservation confirmation again. He looked at it for a few seconds, not because he needed to check it, but because it reminded him how simple the situation should have been. Confirmation, arrival, check-in, room. That was it. No hesitation, no delay, no locked doors. He placed the phone back down and walked over to his bag, unzipping it slowly and taking out a few things, placing them neatly on the table. The routine helped, the small actions bringing a sense of normal back into the moment. A soft knock on the door interrupted the quiet. Marcus paused, then walked over and opened it. The manager stood there, his posture more relaxed than before, but his expression carrying a slight weight that hadn't been there earlier. "Good evening, sir," he said. "I just wanted to follow up and make sure everything is all right with your room." Marcus looked at him for a second, then nodded. "The room is fine," he replied. The manager hesitated, then added, "If there was any inconvenience earlier, we appreciate your patience." It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. Marcus held his gaze for a moment, then responded calmly. "It wasn't about the room," he said. The manager didn't answer right away, because he understood that, at least partially. "I understand," he said quietly. Another pause. Then Marcus spoke again, his tone steady, not confrontational, just clear. "The reservation was there the whole time," he said. The manager nodded slightly. Yes, there was a system delay. Marcus didn't challenge that explanation directly. He didn't need to, because both of them knew the situation had involved more than just the delay. "It's fine," Marcus said after a moment. The manager gave a small nod, then stepped back slightly. "If you need anything, please let us know," he added. Marcus nodded once, then closed the door gently. The room returned to silence again, but this time it felt different. Not tense, not uncertain, just clear. Marcus walked back toward the window, standing there for a moment longer as he looked out at the city lights. The reflection of his own image faintly appeared in the glass, blending with the view outside, two layers existing at once. He realized something then. The situation hadn't escalated. It hadn't turned into something bigger. It had corrected itself before that. And yet, it still mattered. Because the way something begins often says more than how it ends. Marcus turned away from the window and sat down at the desk, picking up a small notebook from his bag. He didn't usually write things down, but tonight felt like a moment worth capturing. Not for anyone else, but for himself. He wrote a few lines, simple, direct, not dramatic, just honest. Then he closed the notebook and set it aside. After a while, he turned off the main lights, leaving only the soft lamp near the bed on. The room shifted into a quieter tone, the shadows softer, the atmosphere calmer. He lay down, staring up at the ceiling for a few seconds, his mind no longer running through the situation, just holding on to the understanding it had left behind. Because it wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about reacting. It was about recognizing. Recognizing how quickly a moment can shift based on perception. Recognizing how systems don't always treat every situation the same, even when they should. Recognizing that awareness changes how you move forward. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the quiet settle in fully now. Tomorrow would be another day. Another set of interactions. Another set of moments that could go in any direction. But now, he would notice more. He would hear things others might not, like the sound of a door locking, like the hesitation in a response, like the difference between routine and exception. And that awareness wouldn't make him anxious. It wouldn't slow him down. It would just stay with him, clear, steady, present. Because once you've experienced a moment where everything feels normal on the surface, but different underneath, you don't forget that feeling. You just learn how to recognize it faster and keep moving forward anyway.